The Costa Rican humidity clung to my skin the moment I got out of the Jeep. That refuge in the middle of nowhere was intense. Just like Daniel, the writer I came to help. He was on the porch, leaning back in a wicker chair, with that distant look I knew so well from his photos. He looked like an elegant castaway, waiting for I don't know what. He saw me arrive and a half-smile appeared beneath that hint of a beard. He didn't get up immediately, as if savoring the interruption. Or perhaps, savoring me. "Elena, you made it." His voice was deeper in person, a purr that vibrated in the thick air. He offered his hand, brushing my fingers more than necessary. I expected to find a tortured writer, not a retired jungle king, I joked, trying to hide the effect of that touch. He laughed softly. "The torture comes later, with the blank pages," he replied, his brown eyes fixed on mine. "Come in, the house, or refuge, is rustic, but it has its charm." Inside smelled of old wood, fresh coffee, and something else indefinable, perhaps him. Huge windows let in the wild green light from outside. Piles of papers were stacked on a large table. His battlefield. I wondered how many heroines had been born and died on that wood. "This is where the magic happens. Or doesn't happen," Daniel said, pointing to the organized chaos. "Your room is at the back. I hope you like the sound of monkeys in the morning." My room was simple but cozy. A bed with a mosquito net, a window overlooking a sea of green. I felt watched, not by Daniel, but by the jungle itself. I left my suitcase and returned to the main room. He was pouring himself a coffee, steam rising lazily. He offered me a cup without asking, as if he knew I needed it. "Thanks." Our fingers brushed again as I took the cup. This time, I was the one who lingered for a moment. An electric current, or perhaps just the anticipated caffeine. We sat on the porch, the heat starting to ease slightly. The air smelled of damp earth and unknown flowers. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was expectant. "So, muse," he said suddenly, glancing at me sideways. "It's a slightly outdated term, don't you think? I prefer to think of you as a collaborator." "Collaborator sounds like an office," I replied, taking a sip of coffee. "I prefer spark or trouble." He smiled again, that smile that stirred something inside. "I like trouble," he admitted. "Problems are usually much more interesting than solutions." He leaned slightly towards me, conspiratorially. We talked for hours, not so much about his novel but about life, about the paths that had led us to this lost corner. There was something magnetic in his brutal honesty. I discovered we both had commitments waiting back home. A detail that hung in the air, unsaid but understood. It added an extra layer of danger to the mix. Dinner was simple: rice, beans, and some chicken I had brought. We prepared it together in the small kitchen, our bodies brushing against each other in the tight space. Every brush was a small shock. He'd pull his hand away quickly, I'd hold my breath. A clumsy dance charged with electricity. We ate by the light of an oil lamp, the sounds of the night drifting in through the open windows. Howler monkeys, insects, the rustling of leaves. "I need to understand my protagonist," he said, looking at me intently. "She's a strong, independent woman, but with a secret vulnerability. Someone who yearns for something more." I felt he wasn't just talking about the character. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding against my ribs. How much of me was he seeing? "Maybe she longs to feel alive," I answered softly. "To feel that someone truly sees her, beyond appearances." My own voice sounded strange. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "Exactly. And she's willing to risk a lot to find it." The air was thick enough to cut. After dinner, he brought out a bottle of aged rum. For the muses, he said ironically, pouring 2 glasses. The amber liquid gleamed in the lamplight. We returned to the porch. The night was now a black cloak dotted with incredible stars and the sounds of unseen creatures. The rum warmed from within. "Read me something," I asked. "Something you wrote today, inspired by the trouble." I needed to hear how I sounded in his words. He hesitated a moment, then went inside and returned with some papers. His voice, reading, was different. Deeper, charged with an emotion that made my skin tingle. He described a woman arriving at a remote place, her green eyes capturing the light, her presence changing the atmosphere of the place. It was me, but magnified, idealized. He spoke of the tension between her and the man watching her, of conversations laden with double meanings, of the silent promise of something forbidden. When he finished, there was a heavy silence. He looked up from the pages and met my eyes. "Well?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's intense," I managed to say. "Almost too real." I felt my cheeks flush. He had captured the undercurrent between us. "Reality is my raw material," he murmured, setting the pages aside. He moved closer, the scent of rum and himself enveloping me. We were very close now. I could see the glint in his eyes, feel the heat radiating from his body. My breathing became shallow. He raised a hand, very slowly, as if afraid of startling me. He grazed my cheek with the back of his fingers. A light touch, yet it burned. I closed my eyes for an instant, absorbing the sensation. The outside world disappeared, it was just him, me, and the complicit jungle night. "Elena," his whisper was like a caress in my ear. He didn't continue. There was no need. The air vibrated with the unsaid. I gently pulled away, catching my breath. I need to rest," I lied. The tension was almost unbearable. I needed space to process. He nodded, his dark eyes filled with something I couldn't decipher. Disappointment? Understanding? Of course. Rest. Tomorrow we continue collaborating. That night, in my bed with the mosquito net, sleep was slow to come. I heard the jungle breathing and felt Daniel's presence on the other side of the wall. The next day, sunlight streamed in. I found Daniel already working, surrounded by his papers, but he looked up instantly. There was a steaming coffee pot and fresh-cut fruit. A peace offering, perhaps. Or a way to maintain closeness without crossing lines. "I propose a morning truce," he said. "We explore the surroundings a bit before the heat sets in. I need fresh air to clear my head." I nodded. The idea of walking through the jungle together was tempting. Dangerously tempting. I put on some boots and we left. The path was narrow, bordered by huge plants and exotic flowers. Daniel walked ahead, clearing the way with a short machete, moving with surprising agility. He turned often to make sure I was following, to point out a wild orchid or the flight of a blue morpho butterfly. In a slippery area, he offered his hand to help me cross a stream. This time, the contact was firm, necessary, but no less electric. We reached a small waterfall cascading into a pool of crystal clear water. The air was cool and smelled of moss and clean water. "The writer's private paradise," Daniel said with a smile. He took off his shirt, revealing a lean but defined torso. I lost my breath for a second. He looked away, as if not wanting me to notice my reaction. He approached the water and splashed his face and neck. Shiny droplets slid down his skin. "Aren't you tempted?" he asked, looking back at me, his eyes twinkling mischievously. "The water is perfect. Revitalizing." I shook my head, laughing. I only brought boots, not a bikini. Although the idea of swimming with him there, alone, was an attractive madness. He shrugged. Your loss. He submerged himself and swam a little, the clear water revealing his movements beneath the surface. I sat on a rock, watching him. It was like seeing one of his novel characters come to life. Wild, free, irresistible. When he came out, water clinging to his skin, his black hair shining, I felt a pang of desire so strong I had to look away. We returned to the refuge in a charged silence. The truce was over. The jungle seemed to have intensified the invisible connection between us. That afternoon, we worked on his novel. He read passages aloud, asking for my opinion, but his eyes sought my reaction more than my comments. The protagonist resembled me more and more, or the version of me he was creating. A bolder, freer version. What would she do now? Daniel asked, referring to the character's dilemma. But the question hung in the air, aimed at me. She'd follow her instinct, I replied, holding his gaze. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it changes everything. That night, a tropical storm broke with fury. Torrential rain pounded the tin roof, lightning illuminated the jungle. The noise was deafening. I left my room and found Daniel in the main room, watching the storm through the window, a glass of rum in his hand. He poured me one without a word. We stood there, almost shoulder to shoulder, watching nature's wild spectacle. The crash of nearby thunder made me jump. My hand brushed against his. This time, neither pulled away. His fingers intertwined with mine, slowly, with a certainty that stole my breath. The warmth of his hand against mine. He turned towards me. A flash of lightning illuminated his face, his expression serious, intense. I could feel his breath close. He said nothing. He just looked at me, and in that look was everything. The attraction, the danger, the silent question. He brought his face close to mine, very slowly. The scent of rum, damp earth, him. I closed my eyes, waiting for the contact that would change the rules of the game. But it didn't come. I felt his lips brush my forehead, a chaste, unexpected kiss that confused me more than anything else. Some stories, he whispered against my skin, are more powerful when they're hinted at. He pulled back, leaving me trembling. The storm subsided, but the electricity between us remained. I went to my room with my heart racing and my mind full of contradictions. My stay was coming to an end. I had helped Daniel, his novel now flowed with new life. But at what cost? Our farewell was on the porch, just like the arrival. The air was fresh after the rain. We looked at each other, knowing something had changed forever. Thank you for being the perfect trouble, he said, with that half smile that was now part of me. No touches, just a look that promised future chapters. I got into the jeep, my heart tight. I took with me the smell of the jungle, the taste of rum, and the feeling of his fingers on my skin. And an unfinished story.